So, in theory now, from edge of template to edge of template is 240 millimeters. This donut, and this what I'm doing here is just for alignment purposes. You do not use this when you're actually grinding a knife. When you grind a knife, you stick the template to the edge, and you stick the template to the edge here. In this case, I'm just using these templates so I got a tall edge so I can reference off of with a straight edge when I test this wheel, okay? So, on the arbor now, and the arbor and our templates are exactly the same. Our arbor distance is 240 millimeters from the edge here to the inside edge here. And our templates, because we have 260 here, minus the 240 leaves us 20. We took up 10 millimeters distance here, 10 millimeters distance here. If you don't have this spacer, you can take a spacer off your molder, a 10 millimeter spacer, and stick it up like this and put your template in and tighten it and get 10 millimeters there. So a lot of people don't have this, it gets lost, they don't realize what it's for, but that's what it's for. So now, in reality, if I stick my arbor, my edge of my spindle nut up against the axial constant stop pin, that's why it's there. That puts it in a constant position, way down there. I'll show you again. Okay. So, up against the pin, then lock your arbor in place. Okay? So now, that can't move. Now the dial indicator comes into play. Okay? Before I do that, I'm going to just take a spacer here that I have, and you can use a spacer from your molder to accomplish this, but this will make it nice for you for alignment purposes. I have a straight edge here. You can use your straight edge from your molder. This is a high precision straight edge. I'm just going to take my arbor, and I'm just going to take this spacer. What this is going to do is just going to hold my straight edge parallel when I'm testing, okay? And I can use it on both left and right. Okay, so you stick this back in, don't forget, up against the axial constant stop pin. Now as that axial constant stop pin wears, it's going to throw off your axial constant alignment. This axial adjustment has 10 millimeters of movement. We're going to set this dial indicator so it has 5 turns of movement. Every turn, one turn, is a millimeter. Okay? You see it switched to 4. As I go back, it switches to 5. In reality, I can turn this axial template carrier, the whole carrier, 5 millimeters in this direction and 5 millimeters to the right in that direction. So with that 10 millimeters of movement, I can compensate for any wear in that axial constant stop pin. Okay, so we got a 4 millimeter wheel end, we're going to stick a 4 millimeter pin in. I'm going to use the square side so it's easier to reference up against. And just take your template reference up there and lock it in place. Now you know it's straight. So now, in reality, if we touch the side of this, now you see why I use this spacer? By using the spacer, I keep the accuracy of this thing. If I try to do it by hand, well, I can move off this thing, and I don't really know if I'm accurate. But by using the spacer, I can tell if I'm accurate. So what we do is we go up against the edge of the pin, because remember, we're 240 millimeters from this edge to this edge. And we go up to the edge of the wheel, which is 4 millimeters. Listen. Barely touching, right? Now, if I'm centered, if my axial template carrier is centered axial constant, then when I touch this side, I should be the same. Because there's my 240 millimeters, right? Listen. Not touching, right? so that my dial indicator is off a little bit because I've had a little bit of wear. So I'm going to move back until it just barely touches. You hear it barely touching there? So that's how much my pin has moved, has worn since the last adjustment. Now, I want to check it again on this side, make sure I'm aligned properly. I got to go back just to here. Okay, good there. Now you guys could be off a lot more if you haven't done this. Mine's pretty. So I'm barely touching on both. Now, I am dead center with the arbor in the wheel. Remember, the wheel is dressed off of this. This whole unit is pinned to the machine. It can't be adjusted. So you have to use the dial indicator to adjust. At this point, I'm going to adjust my dial indicator. Okay? I'm not going to turn it. I'm going to adjust the indicator itself. Watch. So we loosen this. Now, look at, we turn this screw until it lines up at 0. The big needle at 0, small needle at 5, okay? And what that means is you now have this thing centered. Okay, so now this thing is centered. You do not move the axial the axial adjustment on this anymore until you're grinding knives. If you have knives that are out of axial constant, or if you have, let's say, a rabbet knife that you needed it straight 90, the axial would be moving in that direction, because if you didn't have draft angles in the template, you'd be eating up your axial each time you sharpened. And some radius knives, they burn on the end. You have to move your axial a little bit. Remember, this is the axial constant position. Right now, this wheel is dead centered. I got 5 turns to the right, 5 turns to the left. I can move it anywhere I want now, but when I go back to 5 and 0, I know she's aligned. Now, this is important with the Borazon wheel. This is the Borazon wheel that we have here. Now, this is the one I'm using. I put an X on it so I know I can put it back, but I'm going to show you how to align it from scratch so you guys know. Now, in reality, the hubs need about, from experience, about 20 thousandths of shim. Here's the new hub. Hydraulic clamping hub. Most of the Borazon wheels out there are 100 concentration wheels, and they're fine wheels, but as they get smaller, they tend to go flat. And we have developed this wheel here with our vendor, one of our vendors, and this wheel is a, for a winding wheel, 2mm with 2mm wide. Comes with a cleaning stick, comes with shims. The shims are very important. You got different size shims here. These are extremely important. That's why I sell them with the wheels. And then let me explain the wheel a little bit. So most wheels only have about 1/4 of an inch. Some have 5/16. We have 3/8 of an inch on our wheel. It's a little bit more expensive wheel, but this is more of a copper bond wheel, Borazon wheel. We have 10mm of Borazon. That's where this 10mm come in. It's 2mm wide. Okay. It's for finish grinding only. Okay. So it's meant to get rid of your previous finish grind, and it's meant to clean up your rough grind and then lower your angle and put the finish grind on. What I find with the 100% wheels is by the time you get down to the last 1/8 inch of the wheel's flat. This wheel's round. Now you can see I have 10 millimeters here, but the one I'm using on my machine is about halfway gone, but the radius is still there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the radius is still there. It's not going flat. And that's the advantage of the 125% concentration wheel. There's 125% concentration of Borazon, cubic boron nitrate, on the wheel. And with that extra 25%, they use less bonding agent, but more CBN, cubic boron nitrate, okay? So this is our signature wheel. We use this all the time. We sell a lot of these. This wheel will last me probably 11 months to a year, depending how busy I am, and I use it every day. Now, for my clients, sometime when I sell them this wheel, I might not hear from them for a year and a half, 2 years. So the wheel, this wheel is currently $295, but it holds up, and when you see the finished grind and you see the quality product that you get from it, you'll want one of these. And trust me, works good. Okay. We've used many Borazon wheels in our day. So what I tend to do first is we stick on the bottom. We don't want the wheel sticking, okay? We don't want it rusting, depending on how your coolant mixture is. If this wheel lasts you a year, year and a half, it's going to rust itself to the flange. By sticking a piece of plastic on this side, one of the shims, we're going to eliminate that problem. So I think we're going to try to start maybe 20 thousandths of an inch of shim and see how far we can go from there. Maybe let's start at let's go inches. Alright, so inches, let's start at 15.5, okay? So the 15.5 generally has to go on this side, okay? Generally the shims, the heavy amount of shims goes on this side. When you're looking at the grinder, it goes to the right, so the shims, most of the shims, that's where you put the regular shim to keep it from rusting, and you put your build up here, so we're going to push this wheel to the right. So all our shims are going to go on first, about, let's try 15,000, see how that gets us first. Then the wheel, then the other plastic piece to keep it from rusting to the shaft over time. If the coolant mixture gets broken down, that will change. So we're just gonna, and you're gonna have to just adjust the shims. Okay, so now that we have the axial constant set 5 on the small dial, big on the large dial, we know we're axial constant. So we're gonna take this wheel off. Remember, we're gonna undersize this wheel later. So if we're not perfect with the Borazon wheel, then we have some extra steel to take out. Okay? We go back to our straight edge. Now, we don't adjust here. We adjust in the amount of shims we put in. And we know we're going to be off. I made it purposely so it would be off. Hitting heavy there. Okay? Not hitting here. Okay? So, we have to take some shims out. The wheel has to go this direction. In an effort to save time, I'm going to take some shims off here until we get it aligned. I'm going to show you. on my wheel. I've taken the wheel off. Now you don't see the shims on mine, but they're there. What I've done is, after I've got the proper amount of shims, I turned on the wheel and stuck my razor blade here and cut this extra off on both sides, so it doesn't show, but if they're in there on both sides, okay? What you're looking to accomplish is this. You can see the wheel is moving closer. This is Wining's convenience package. Great item. Okay, so now that we're going to align the 2mm wheel, don't forget to change to the 2mm pin. Okay? So, remember, no adjustment here, always in the shims. Listen. Barely touching, right? So, we're exactly aligned. Okay? I took some shims. At first, I was not aligned. And let me show you on the wheel that we started with. This had about 15 thousandths worth of shims in it. When you adjust the Borazon wheel, you want to get it as close as possible using those shims. I give you different size shims for that. Barely touching. Barely touching, okay? So we got 15.5 thousandths of an inch on this wheel, and then that one we got 20 thousandths. It just depends what wheel. And we have extra shim left over. So I give you enough shims to adjust the wheel. Now, the final step we want to do is to make sure that we go back and dress our wheel down below 4mm. Okay? And that, the alignment is over. The last step, and so when you adjust this diamond dresser, you want to adjust it so it's always undersized of your wheel. You only want it exact when you're putting a new Borazon wheel on, like we just did. But this wheel, you always want at about 3.8, 3.85, 3.9. The smaller you go with it, the more flexibility you have if you're 1,000th of an inch or so off on the shim with the Borazon wheel. That way you always have a little steel on each side of the profile left over after the rough grind. Okay? So I'm going to take this diamond dresser and we're going to shave it down. Then we're going to show you how to adjust that diamond. Okay? Bear with me here, it's going to get a little noisy again. Don't forget your safety goggles and you don't want to be breathing this stuff in. You want to enjoy retirement after you get to my age. So use the safety stuff that was provided. And don't be breathing in this stuff. Perfect. Now, what that does is by going undersized, you left a little bit of extra steel for your Borazon wheel. And it's not too much where it's too aggressive for the Borazon wheel. The Borazon wheel will eat that up and no problem. But I want to show you to adjust your diamond dresser now. As you can see, the diamond dresser is at 0 here, but it's past the 0 there. So I've got this set at 3.8 now. So I want to, every time I dress a wheel, I want to say, okay, so I'm at 3.8. Let me back up to this point, loosen my screw, set my diamond dresser to where it's touching the wheel, and set this at 0. Okay? So the next time that I dress this wheel and I back off on it, by the time I get to 0 in 2 lines, I know that my wheel's going to be roughly 380, 390. It'll get bigger and bigger as this diamond starts to wear. So this is just a rough adjustment, as I explained earlier. But it'll get you close, and then you stop measuring for accuracy. The only time you need it exactly 4 is when you're aligning the Borazon wheel. When you're using a Borazon wheel, your wheel is exactly 2, but you're grinding at 3.8, 3.85, 3.9, somewhere on there. So you're leaving a little extra steel for your Borazon wheel. Okay, that's it.